Hey guys, and welcome to a battle featuring myself in control of the forces of the Lizardmen up against Gooser and the Empire. So it is certainly going to be a duck versus a goose situation. Should be some good fun. So this was my return to the game after a couple of weeks off. I went away last week. I hadn't played for about a week before then, so I had about 2.5 weeks off. So bear in mind, this may be a tiny bit rusty, but I thought, what a better way to get back into action with a tried and tested Lizardman build up against the Empire that I wanted to show off for you guys. So up in the high ground here, we do have 2 units of chameleon skinks. They're going to be deployed forward just so we can check out where the opponent's formation and troops are. These guys, one of the peskiest units in the game, and if you've seen any of my videos of these lovely little boys before, you know I'm a huge fan of playing with them and a big hater when it comes to going up against them, unfortunately. So our front line, we do have a mixture of skink cohorts as well as Saurus warriors with shields. The skinks just add a bit of extra width, with the Saurus kind of coming with that punch and can really tear apart state troops very cost effectively. I want to go as wide as possible though, just try and push it into the back line, shut down handgunners, cannons and the like. We also have the cohort of Sotek, the red crested skink regiment of renown, who can refuse to die. And these guys are such a cool colour scheme, but I don't think it's appreciated just about enough, wielding those giant great axes. On either flank, we are going to have 2 units of Cold One Riders. We have some basic ones mixed in with the Cold One Spear Riders, and these guys are going to be chevroned up as well. Now, we have that on both flanks here. Now, Cold One Riders, I think, are one of the best units in the game for Lizardmen up against Empire. They deal very well with enemy cavalry, and even in numbers like this can overwhelm Demigryph Knights, and you certainly want that pace coming up against the Empire. We do have a lone Feral Gary here in the back lines, a Feral Basirdon, once again just to add another target for my opponent to try and shoot, and he can certainly use his weight to push into the back line, shut down handgunners and the like. We have a Saurus Old Blood, so no Croc Guard today, just the basic boy up on top of his mighty wannabe Grimlock, but still, Feral Mounted Consul is still a very dangerous threat indeed. Stand Your Ground and Amulet of Itzel should make him a tanky customer, should be able to hold on against Franz and the like, to allow his other supporting units to come to his aid. We also have a Skink Priest of Heavens coming in with one of my favourite spells in the game, Curse of the Midnight Wind. Minus 30 armor and 24 melee attack. You drop that on a blob of Demigryph Knights when you charge them with your Cold One Spear Riders, and you can certainly tear them apart very cost effectively. We have Wind Blast and Harmonic Convergence as well, wrapping up our build. So for the forces of the Empire here and the mighty Goose, he does have 2 units of Flagellants in the front line. These guys, of course, are unbreakable, frenzied, devoted fanatics of Sigma here. Perfect target for my chameleon skinks due to their 0 armor, but at the same time they're unbreakable. I'm going to hold back my legions of skinks and Saurus. He has a long line as well as swordsmen here. Looks like 4 units including the Sigma Sons, another unbreakable unit to help protect this back line. Speaking of a backline, in the centre pocket he does have 1 unit of mortars, and I'm quite a big fan of these guys in this matchup. They do tear apart skinks very effectively. And he has double crossbowmen, which is interesting. I would have preferred to see huntsmen, I think, if I was playing the Empire forces today, but crossbowmen, a unit I don't get to see terribly often, so it'll be interesting to see how they do indeed perform. He has Volkmar the Grim riding on top of his wagon here in the back, coming in with all his buffs: Grand Soulfire, Grand Shield of Faith, Grand Hammer of Sigma, as well as a banishment. Over on the right hand flank he does have a unit of Demigryph Knights with halberds, can certainly go toe to toe with some of those big monsters, try and get a surround on the Old Blood. Hidden in a little bit further back position we do have the Great Cannon. I'm a big fan of separating your artillery pieces so it's harder to shut down them all in one go. But the cannon lurking on the edge of the forest, as well as some outriders with grenade launchers. Now hidden in the trees there are going to be a unit of a Reiksguard as well as a Witch Hunter here. Another guy I don't get to see terribly often. He is such a cool model here, and certainly he's going to be here hunting down those vile Lizardmen. If I can get over him, I can check his abilities there. So he's coming with Accusation, and this is the main reason you take a Witch Hunter. It's just a super powerful ability, lowering the missile resistance, melee defense, and armor of a unit. Makes it an incredibly good ability to help other troops snipe out the opponents. So without further ado, let's get this underway. So I'm well aware of this cannon near the edge of the tree, so I'm very suspect that there is something lurking in here. I'm not quite sure if it's Reiksguard, Demigryph Knights, or what, but I know there is something nearby. Do a tiny bit of juking with the cohort of Sotek just to avoid those early mortar round fires, and we are going to be poking up and just poison darting into these naked fanatics is what they're built for, is dying in the name of Sigma, and they're certainly going to be doing that here. Countercharge is coming in by my opponents with these Demigryph Knights with their halberds charging forward through the trees, launching their way towards my skinks, but we're simply going to pull back, poison them as we do retreat here. Going to be lowering their speed, so we can push up with our Cold One Spear Riders looking for that juicy engagement. But my opponent very wisely is going to be falling back at this time. The Skinks do get a little bit overzealous, and I often do this, a bit of a mistake on my behalf, and kind of leave the Saurus Warriors in the dust. The Saurus, of course, are a lot slower than Skinks, but at least we are closing the line at the same time. Cohort of Sotek take a big mortar round to the face, losing 8 models and a ton of HP. But the front line is going to get underway here, as our cavalry do start to try and overload the flanks where possible. Now on the right hand side, we are going to be taking our Skink cohorts and pushing our way round the outside here, trying to make sure we don't get caught up too much on the enemy, and forcing our way back on top of the Great Cannon. Looks like my opponent is going to respond though with the Reichsguard, which is a really nice play by him, but I now know they are there. We're going to be forcing back the Outriders with grenade launchers for now, just hunting them down with the Cold One Spear Riders, who have taken a surprising amount of damage from those guys. They actually do relatively well up against all threats, grenade launchers in mass at least. And we do get a lovely charge on the opposite flank with the Cold One Riders into the Demigryph Knights, and these guys again absolutely decimated. The charge bonus super helping out here. Of course, we even have a couple of the guys flanking around behind the enemy and dragging them down. A Grand Hammer of Sigmar does go down in order to try and boost these guys' stats. We're going to counter punch that with a Curse of the Midnight Wind, and these Demigryph Knights are certainly going to be done for. But overall, we are flooding into the back line with Skink cohorts as well as the Saurus Old Blood, pushing into the back line as fast as possible before splitting our cavalry in the back line here. One unit going to help out the beleaguered Skink cohort, the other unit popping back into the Great Cannon now. In reality, I should have done this the other way round, as the spears aren't chasing the cavalry with their bonus versus large, but still, they are going back here and shutting down the enemy. We're pushing forward with the Old Blood as well as the cohort of Sotek, who did manage a very bloody fight in the front line, but have certainly managed to push their way through. Skink cohorts as well are going to be hunting down these poor crossbowmen. Now, as for the main battle line, it's going relatively tit for tat. Both of us are doing, okay up against the other. Saurus Warriors, wherever they're fighting, are doing very well. Skinks, on the other hand, have been beaten back by Sigma's Sons and the rest of the swordsmen. We do have a Feral Basildon that is rampaging through the back lines here, hunting down this poor mortar crew, currently shattered and running for the hills, but he wants bloods and he is hunting them down where possible. Now, at this point, the balance power, if you do take a look, is relatively in our favour, not too much, but we've managed to kind of break up the Empire formation, and their army really needs to work together at this point. We've pushed back the crossbowmen into the trees, hunting them down and wasting their shots into Skink cohorts. The Cav are a little bit out of position as well over here, and with our extra mobility of all our Cold One Riders, as well as our Saurus Old Blood, I see the perfect opportunity here to snipe into the back line and swoop upon Volkmar the Grim. He has popped Grand Shield of Faith there. Try and save him in this situation, but he's completely surrounded now. He's also going to be dropping his lovely bombardment spell, going to be catching a ton of Cold One Riders, but is it enough to save him? He's taking an absolute savage beating here from the Saurus Old Blood. At this point, we are going to be moving up our Chameleon Skinks as well. That crew is completely dead. The mortar crew going down to the last man there. We'll be flooding it into the back line as well with more Saurus Warriors. Now, Cold One Spear Riders have appeared back as well after shattering some crossbowmen. Just going to be chucking themselves into this big old glorious melee here. Some of the Cold One Spear Riders did start to rampage here, but Cold Blooded has been popped on them just to keep them out as high as possible to keep them in the fight. And the Reichsguard taking a bit of an absolute pounding here. A banishment is going down, and this could really try and turn the tide of this main fight here, but it does look like it just kind of spins away, unfortunately. And with that, the troops are really starting to struggle here. A Curse of the Midnight Wind does go down, and that Saurus Old Blood is not a happy buddy. He is chewing on Volkmar the Grim now, cursing out the Sigma's Chosen, who's down to just 125 health, and is certainly not going to be able to survive too much longer. And with a mighty snap of the jaws, the mighty Carnosaur does chew on Volkmar the Grim. With that, the balance power goes very heavily in my favour. The Empire forces, though there are still many of them, are kind of isolated in separate pockets and slowly being dragged down here. Outriders with grenade launchers do break, and it looks like army losses has set in. So very well played to my opponent, but it looks like the forces of Empire are unfortunately going to be going down here and biting the dust. A few Sigma Sons are desperately trying to hold on here, but honestly, Saurus Warriors, considering they're not like a regiment now unit or anything, do actually do really decent work up against Sigma Sons, and I chewing on them quite happily down here, as the rest of our forces do start to come over to flock in and engage. I think the real MVPs here have been the Cold One Riders, doing such good work pushing and punishing that back line, as well as the big threats, and here they come in, led by the Saurus Old Blood, chewing on these poor men of the Empire. That is going to be game. So let's go into the end there and do a little bit of analysis. So well played to Goose there. It's always good to see a fellow bird, I suppose. and doing a decent job overall. So proven once and for all, the duck does trump the goose here, and it was a really fun game overall. So it's a nice kind of game back into the game. A little bit rusty here. We made a few little errors, kind of leaving a couple of skink cohorts deep in reserve and not kind of prioritising the correct targets sometimes with our Cold One riders. But overall, this build is a build I really want to show off, and I think it is very potent and powerful up against the Empire. Of course, if your opponent brings net spam, that does slow you down a little bit as you are trying to push into the back lines and pressure with the cavalry. But at the same time, you've gone rather wide with the infantry, so you can still tend to get into that back line and at least cause a little bit of havoc. Now, as stated earlier, I definitely think the MVPs here with the Cold One Spear Riders able to deal with those Demigryph Knights on the charge of brutal efficiency. Also flank round to the right hand side, shut down the cannon, and in the end help pull down Volkmar the Grim. Anyway guys, hope you did enjoy. If you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel for all good Total War Warhammer content, as well as liking the video and commenting, all that good standard YouTube stuff. Now if you do want to get involved and send me replays, get involved in tournaments I host, and just generally speak to a load of cool guys, feel free to join my Discord. There's a link down below in the description. We are in fact hosting a tournament tomorrow, so there's still time to enter into that. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.